Local fisherman Baker Dill, who leads a tranquil existence on the island of Plymouth, starts having weird dreams that he can't explain. Driving a fishing vessel named Serenity, he sets out with his companion Duke in search of a big tuna that he refers to as a beast. He goes after the tuna every day, but he always comes up empty-handed. Constance, his town girl, is his sexual partner. One day, Baker receives a visit from Karen, his ex-wife. She informs him about her violent spouse Frank and gives him the name John Mason. She claims that when she clashes with Frank and spends hours on end playing on the computer, Dill and her son Patrick get really worried. She makes an attempt to convince Dill to kill her violent and misogynistic husband, Frank. Dill dismisses the idea with a laugh. Frank is going to Dill's island in order to meet up with Karen for their holiday. For $10 million, Karen wants Dill to take Frank for a boat cruise and toss him overboard. Dill declines. However, he accepts Frank's offer of $10,000 for a boat ride because he and Duke need the cash for a boat overhaul. Frank explains to Dill on the boat how Patrick spends his entire day operating a video game that involves catching fish by means of a guy on a boat. To Karen's dismay, the three guys return to land following a brief encounter with a shark. The evening Karen visits Dill and makes herself available to him. Dill meets Patrick in return for killing Frank, but first they have sex and she accepts her offer. Baker chooses to aid Karen and Patrick instead of pursuing his objective of catching a big tuna named Justice, since he seems to have a telepathic link with Patrick, Karen's kid from a previous marriage. When businessman Reed Miller locates Baker, he tells him that he is a sales representative for a firm that makes fishing gear and that he would want to give him a free fish tracker. But then something unexpected happens. Reed tells Baker, unintentionally, that he is a character in a video game Patrick is playing. Reed is there to convince Dill to keep to getting tuna fish because Patrick had intended for the game and Dill's persona to be centered around catching fish. However, since Frank has entered the picture, Dill is now more interested in killing Frank. Reed goes on to say that stands for the game's rules, one of which being that nobody dies on the island. He is confused, though, because the inventor has now altered one of the rules. Dill notices that all of the maps of the island are blank when it comes to the rest of the world. As though Plymouth were the only place on Earth with life. Dill gradually comes to understand that he is playing a game since everyone in his social circle appears to be aware of it and is constantly creating difficulties for him to overcome in order to comply with the rules. For example, Duke hires a sailor to break Frank's hand so that the following day, he is unable to go sailing with Dill. The sequences in which Patrick was playing the game were not flashbacks, rather, they were ongoing happenings that complemented the movie's plot. The Real Baker passed away while serving in the military, and his son turned him into a fisherman so he could fulfill a childhood dream of killing his violent stepfather. Through the game's coding, Baker is able to speak with Patrick and makes the decision to carry out his son's instructions by killing Frank. Frank is deeply sedated by Karen after their sexual encounter and is forced to board the boat that Dill is taking out to sea. Patrick takes up a knife to confront the actual Frank, who has been beating his mother for years, just as Baker kills Frank by throwing him off the boat. As the movie comes to a close, Patrick meets his father again and programs himself into the game.